So this is the GCSE Chemistry High-Tier paper. It's the OCR 21st Century November 2020 paper. All the information you need to know are on the front here. We are looking at question 4. Figure 4.1 shows how the average world temperature has changed since 1880. So we've got the average world temperature on the y-axis here in degrees Celsius and the year here on the x-axis. Using figure 4.1, describe how the average world temperature changed from 1910 to 1930. So you need to be able to read the scale correctly. So from 1880 to go to 1900, so that's 10 squares, 10 squares, and the difference is 20 years. So that means each square is 2 years. Okay, so 5 squares is 10 years. So therefore 1910 is halfway through 1900s and 1920, which is this point here, and then 1930 is halfway through 1920 and 1940. So what happens to the temperature here? Well, it increases. Okay, so the temperature increases. You could have said the temperature increases quickly at first because the gradient is high, it's very steep, and then it increases slowly later on because the gradient is shallow, the gradient is like lower. But you don't need to say that. For this 1 mark, you just need to say the temperature increases. Between which 2 years was there the largest continuous temperature rise? So the line tells you what happens to the temperature. So the temperature decreases, it goes up a little bit and then goes down again, it increases slowly, and then there's a spike. So this line shows you how the temperature changes. We need to find the 2 years in which the temperature increases the most, and that you can see it roughly happens here, but there are dips. So increases, there's a dip here and a dip here, but we need a continuous increase, and that starts at this point here. Okay, so that's 1993. It continuously goes up until we stop reading from here, so, and that is 2017. Okay, they would allow you to have values like slightly higher by one value, by 1 year, so 1994 or 1992, and same for the other year, but not too much higher. So obviously if it was way off, they wouldn't accept that, but they do allow plus or minus 1 value. Some scientists believe that average world temperatures have increased due to increased amounts of greenhouse gases in the air. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. Amaya says, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere acts like the glass in a greenhouse by reflecting infrared radiation back to Earth. Explain what is incorrect about Amaya's statement. So what is correct about her statement is that the way the greenhouse effect works is similar to the greenhouse where we grow crops. However, she's making 2 errors in her statement. The first one is, she said, it's like the glass. The glass is actually a single layer, but the greenhouse gases, the carbon dioxide greenhouse gas in the atmosphere, it's not a single layer, it's throughout the whole of the atmosphere. So carbon dioxide is in the whole atmosphere. It's not just a single layer. It's in the lower part of the atmosphere, but it's still spread out in the whole atmosphere, like spread out. It's not just a single rigid layer like the glass. And also it says by reflecting infrared radiation. Carbon dioxide actually absorbs infrared radiation. It doesn't reflect it. It absorbs, I'll just write IR, but you need to write infrared radiation. So that's 2 marks there, but there's another point you could have mentioned. So CO2 absorbs infrared radiation and it re-emits it in all directions to warm up the Earth. Okay, so CO2 re-emits infrared radiation in all directions. Okay, you only needed 2 of these statements, but that's what's incorrect about her. So just a quick recap of the greenhouse effect. So we've got the sun here, and this is the Earth. Obviously the Earth is smaller. This is the atmosphere of the Earth, around the Earth. Okay, so light rays or radiation, it hits the surface of the Earth and it warms up the Earth. It then radiates back from the Earth into space. The Earth radiates that energy from the sun back into space as heat. Infrared radiation is heat. However, not all of it goes there. Some of it is absorbed by greenhouse gases. Here we have greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and they absorb that heat or that infrared radiation, and then they re-emit it in all directions. State 1 suitable way in which we can lower our carbon dioxide emissions. So that's all to do with cutting down on our use of fossil fuels, drive less or drive fewer cars, don't cut down trees, plant trees, use renewable resources like solar energy or geothermal energy or wind or tidal energy. So use those instead of using non-renewable resources like fossil fuels and coal and gas. So I'm just going to say use renewable resources instead of non-renewable resources. State one effect of increasing average world temperatures on the Earth's climate. So obviously, if the globe becomes warmer, there will be ice caps, polar ice caps will melt, the sea levels would rise. This is just for 1 mark, you just only need to mention one of those. You could have said flooding would increase, there would be less land for crops to grow, and there would just be extreme weather patterns.